Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem on my Blitz game number 743. My opponent played d4, and I went with knight f6. I was planning to play the Nimzo-Indian if I got the chance, and he started out in a promising way by playing c4, so I went e6. And now we went knight f3, an anti-Nimzo-Indian move. And then there's a number of ways to play here. d5, transposing directly into a queen's gambit. Declined is a fine move here. b6, the Queen's Indian defense is, I think that's what I play most commonly. Bishop b4, the Bogo Indian, which I've actually never tried, and then c5, which leads to a Benoni or a Blumenfeld gambit. But of course, white has to play along. And the main move here is d5, and that's pretty much all I've ever seen in this position. But you can see there's three somewhat respectable alternatives here with g3, knight c3, and e3. And checking these out with the chess engine, they all seem to leave white with some kind of advantage. Although d5 is the strongest. After e3, the best reply is apparently d5 and just going into a queen's gambit declined. It starts to look like a semi-Tarrasch actually after a while. Knight c3. Knight c6. Yeah, I think this is a position that could come from the semi-Tarrasch. It's kind of a funny line here with a3, a6, both sides kind of waiting to see what the other is doing, and then finally white decides to take the plunge here. Yeah, the chess engine rates this as about equal. Let's see, the other line here, instead of playing a3 immediately, c takes d5. I think is probably what I would expect to see, and then you can take back with the knight or the pawn, and there's another semi-Tarrasch type of position. It looks kind of interesting, and black should be fine. So I guess I should try that next time. I just don't play the Queen's Gambit Decline that much, so I don't know too much about these positions. Anyway, so I was a little bit at sea here after e3, and I played d6. And after his reply, bishop d3, which is not bad. We're just out of the opening book here. So we get some normal development here. But white has a pretty good opening edge. That's why I was looking for some alternatives there. And I don't seem to have the kind of counterplay that I would get from a Benoni. At least I'm not seeing it just yet. Let's see, I went bishop e7. He went knight c3. Castled. He went a3. Keeping my knight out of there. And here, I guess e5 is the move that really, up until this point, it's kind of a normal opening advantage to white. But e5 seems to land me in a little bit of trouble. So a6 is the way to continue here. Say queen c2, h6. Well, just to get away from tricks like that. And then d5. And then I might get into a more typical Benoni type position if white finally managed to push the pawn then. But anyway, when I push on with e5, he can push on with d5 right away, and this gives a significant edge to white. The engine gives white a +1 advantage here. I mean, not only does white have more space, but now I'm going to have to, my piece has been kicked back, and I have to reroute them. So white has the edge in development as well as the edge in space. Let's see. He played h3 here. Takes more squares away from my pieces. This is not bad. I went rook e8. Trying to get my pieces reorganized in some fashion, but also, preparing to push e4 if the circumstances warrant. I went queen c2, which stops that idea for the moment. I went knight bd7. Let's see, I went knight g5, which is okay. I went knight f8, so I've got a useful square for my knight now, and I've also got an open diagonal for my bishop, so I'm feeling a little bit better about my position. But well, white can continue on the queen side with b4, and this still is a good position for white. Instead, he started offering some trades here, and this is really where I think white kind of loses the advantage here. Although there's one interesting tactical moment coming up, so let's get there. But trading, even though it is getting rid of my good bishop in this pawn structure, I'm sure that's what he was thinking. Get rid of that light squared bishop, but that bishop had not yet been developed, and so this is really helping me. Also, my position is kind of cramped, so anything that trades off some of my minor pieces, gives me a little more space to work with. Let's see, I went h6 here. a6 maybe was a little more accurate, keeping the knight out of that b5 square. But I played h6, kicked his knight back. And now, if I just trade here, actually, this is equalizing. And the knight would have been better going back to f3, and white would keep an edge. After knight to e4, I could equalize by just trading. The interesting thing is there's no good way to take. Kind of the most natural way to take is with the knight. But I can kick the queen first with g6, and then kick the knight with f5, and that's a good position for black. I've just gained a lot of space, and now I have easy development, and it's white's pieces that are getting kicked around, and white's bishop rather is on the dark squares is looking pretty sad. So that equalizes, or maybe is even better for black. Let's see. So the best way to take is just to play queen takes, and then I can play queen d7, and once again start to threaten expansion with the f-pawn. And all that is, well, that should be at least equal for black. But, well, instead, he was in a trading mood, and I played queen d7, offering some more trades also, with the idea of just relieving my somewhat cramped position. But the other line was just better. Well, the main reason the other line is better, though, is because this fails to a tactic. So if you want to put on your tactical thinking here, see if you can find a sequence that wins some material for white. There's such a sequence right here, and it's about 2 or 3 moves deep. So if you want to think about it, why don't you pause the video right here? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. So it starts with taking this knight off with check, which is kind of forcing. I don't want to take with the pawn and mess up my king side, so I take with the bishop. But that sets up the tactic. Now he trades queens and plays knight to b5. So you can see the importance of getting that a6 move in at this point. Knight to b5 is a double attack. It's hitting the loose pawn, and it's threatening the fork. And there's no way to meet both threats. I can, move the rook to protect the. I guess I would have to move this rook over to protect the c7 square. But then he can take the pawn, or I can bring the bishop back to defend the pawn, and then he's got the fork. So no way to deal with both threats, and white wins material. So pretty nice little tactic. Fortunately for me, my opponent was still in this trading mood, and just continued taking. And so now we get into a position that, well, after bishop d2, the chess engine rates this as even. He could still have maybe rerouted this knight somewhere, and keeping more material on, I guess, is still good for white. But after these trades, well, and also allowing me this f5 move with tempo, I have equalized. Let's see, the knight goes back to g3. And let's go on for a while. This is kind of a long game, and there's some interesting moments in the end game. All of this stays in the range of about even. I think white played this part well, and he activated his rook. So at this point, I was starting to feel like white was getting an edge in the end game. But I do have a bishop versus a knight, and there is a neat way to deal with this rook on the 7th rank. Which I didn't find, but it's I played rook f to b8 to try and chase it away and resolve things without losing material, because I was trying to chase the rook off that 7th rank so that I wouldn't have to always be defending this pawn, have my rook in a passive position. But it turns out I can play my other rook to b8, and if he takes, then this is a kind of skewer, and there's no great targets for this rook. I mean, this rook can move aside, and I can take the pawn, or he trades. And I guess the point is the bishop is controlling that a8 square, so he can't actually defend the pawn, and I'm getting it back. So that handy bishop there, it is a strong piece, and because of that, I still have an equal endgame here. Let's see, if he doesn't take the pawn, if he tries rook f to b1, then I can trade here. And now I can defend the pawn from the side, and that's a much better position for my rook. So it's no longer going to be stuck behind the pawn. So this was where white starts to get a better endgame, and he keeps a good endgame for a while. Let's see, he doubles, forces a trade. See, I'm trying to liberate my position by pushing the a pawn. He activates his knight, and I decide to just trade it off and go into the rook and pawn endgame. His chances might have been better to keep the knight on, so he would have to find another move right here. At some point, this rook and pawn endgame turns kind of drawish. And of course, there's that old saying that all rook and pawn endgames are drawn. Throughout all this part, however, the chess ending gives an advantage to white, but it's never clear if it's a winning advantage. So anyway, let's continue on. I played rook a6. Yeah, it's a terrible kind of passive position here. But, well, I am holding on to everything now. And, you know, it's hard for him to find targets. He brings his king over, and I get my king into the game. Have to go this kind of roundabout fashion because his rook is controlling the 7th rank, so I'm a little bit slower getting to where the action is. But it seems that I can still manage to keep his king out. And I think that's why, even though the chess engine might find some kind of theoretical advantage to white here, you know, I couldn't find, looking at the chess engine's lines, any way for white to really break through and realize that advantage. It just is a steady advantage, but no improvement. Let's see. But then g3, the chess engine definitely frowns on that. I think maybe there's an idea of pushing the f-pawn forward and trying to undermine these pawns. His king would have to come over here to d2 first to try and realize that plan. So when he pushes the g-pawn forward, he's sort of giving up on challenging my advanced e-pawn there. So anyway, I played g5. There's this exchange. And then if he just stays here on the b file, chess engine rates that as even. So after this exchange of pawns over here, it finally says, okay, it's just even. There's no longer any advantage at all to white. But well, he was still pressing for that win. He had an advantage throughout most of this game. And that can sometimes lead you to push too hard. But he gave up the b file when he played this move, rook h7. And actually, I'm better at this point. Not necessarily winning, but now the edge is shifted, and I have that winning, that edge in the game, and he doesn't. That he used to have. Let's see, he checked my king back and played h4. And actually, after h4, this is rated as a win for black. So the best defense here was king to d2. Yeah, bringing the king back over to help these pawns. You know, the queen side is frozen, so the action is going to be over here on the king side, and my rook is still out of play. So king d2 is the best defense here, and he's got to worry about this troublesome advanced pawn here. But after h4, it's actually a win for black. So let's see. I took, which is correct. He took back. I played rook b3, coming in with a check. You know, this wouldn't have been a tempo if the king were back on e2. That's another advantage of starting to move the king. Let's see. He stayed on the queen side with king c2. And here I played a move that was not the best. So the best way to win, the direct win here, is just to go ahead and grab this pawn, let black take this pawn. I guess this was hard to see. This required some calculation. And then bringing the rook over here to f3, defending my pawns over here, and he can't defend the f-pawn. But he can go after my pawn. I mean, this is a kind of risky way to play. That comes with check, though, and I can start pushing these pawns forward. He can, of course, take this pawn or start pushing this pawn. But anyway, yeah, the chess engine says this is just a win. So you'd have to calculate it out that, well, my king can slow this pawn down enough and his king can't stop my pawns. And so that's a win. He eventually has to sacrifice the rook to stop them. So that would be the win at this point. Let's see, I played king e7, just holding on to my pawns. This still keeps a winning advantage. So it's just rook takes a3 would have been the quickest win. Let's see, he goes h5. Rook a2 check. No, I went rook takes a3. Here we go. He went rook e6 check. Chased my king, and then played rook to f6, getting behind this pawn. This is probably his idea here. The chess engine likes this h6 move a little better. I still have time to do this check and take, and there is still an advantage to black, a winning advantage to black here, but this is probably white's best chance. He's got some play with this pawn. Let's see, he went rook f6 directly, and yeah, I have this check. King went to b1, and I grab this pawn and defend my pawn. So now he pushes h6. I went rook to h2 to keep that pawn from going any further and giving up the f-pawn. That wasn't strictly necessary. There are ways of playing without even giving up that pawn, but this still is winning. And so we trade pawns. Since he grabbed my f-pawn, I get to grab his h-pawn. He went rook f7 check, driving my king back. Cancel that. I went to e8, hitting his rook. And then he went rook a7, and I just went rook h2, keeping his king away from away from the rest of the board, and setting up some winning ideas with my advanced pawn. And I pushed the pawn immediately because that was my idea here. But the winning move here is king to f7. Just bring the king back into the game. It's something they often say about endgames is you should really take your time. This is my chance to get my king into the game while his king is still cut off, and I have an extra point pawn. So let's see. He could come back and attack this pawn, but if he does something like this, his rook is going to be out of play, and if he ever releases the pressure on that pawn, then my king can come around and defend this way. So one way or another, I'm going to get my king into a good position here while his king is out of play. And of course, trading rooks leads to a winning king and pawn endgame. So e3 is just rushing things, so you should not rush things when you're playing the endgame. He went rook a3, hitting the pawn, forcing it forward. Now he's got this idea of check and take the pawn if I move my rook away. Let's see, I played, let's see, I went e2. He went rook e3 check, getting his rook behind the pawn with tempo. I went king d7, and he went king c1. Now he's coming over to take this pawn. So the best move here, then the next move actually turns it into a draw. But I'm still winning at this point, and the winning idea here is rook to h4. So he could just take this pawn. Here's the point, though. I take here with check. King goes somewhere, and then I attack this pawn. I get both pawns, so that I didn't see that. I get both pawns, and with two pawns connected, this is a pretty easy win, even with rooks on the board. Not all rook and pawn endgames are drawn, especially when you have two pawns. So I was still winning all the way up to here, but this idea just doesn't work. Rook h1 check. I might have been worried under time pressure at this point, because I don't think I was thinking very much at all at this point. Rook h1 check. He went king d2, and I just have to queen. I'm losing that pawn, and I'm just sort of hoping here that his displaced king will give me some chances. Well, I know I have a draw at least. I go king e7, but this is a draw technically. He went king d2. I went king f6, and he went king d3. King d3 is the losing move. Actually, every move loses here for white except for one. There's only one move, and it's very instructive. So it's all about the opposition, and the only way for white to draw is to play king to e2. And now, I don't have any pawn moves. This is easy to calculate. I only have king moves. Wherever I go, he can take the opposition. He can take the diagonal opposition if I go there, and if I go here, he can play like that. So yeah, actually, if I go here, he can also take the direct opposition. So wherever I go, he can get the opposition. So it's finding that move, that square you can go to, so that wherever your opponent moves, you can get the opposition. Any other move allows me to get the opposition. He played king d3, just marching forward, but now I get the opposition. And diagonal opposition is often just as good as a direct opposition, and we see that here. let's see, he slides over, and now I have the direct opposition. He goes back, I step forward. Typical endgame sequence. So let's just step through this. There's just no way to defend the pawn, so it was just that one chance he had, and he missed it, so he resigned at this point. Anyway, nice game. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you again soon.